When you sent me packing down Green River Valley, I knew that if you couldn't, then no one would happen. Lost myself drinking with the
Hey, welcome to Mile High Stash, the podcast that asks what 5 albums you would take to a remote Colorado cabin in the event of a zombie apocalypse, armed only with food, water, and a crank-powered Victrola. My name is Adam, and I'm the host of Mile High Stash, and also a big, almost lifelong fan of Jane's Addiction. So I'm very excited that after 3 months off, we get to reunite here on Mile High Stash for episode 1 of season 2 with one of my biggest childhood heroes, acclaimed, legendary Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros drummer Stephen Perkins, who talked with me recently from behind one of his drum kits in Los Angeles, just as Porno for Pyros gets ready to head out on what's being called both a reunion and a farewell tour. They are coming to Aspen and Denver, along with, they're going from California all the way to New Jersey. Stephen Perkins and singer-songwriter Perry Farrell, who also founded Lollapalooza, are bandmates in both Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros. And it was great to hear about the genesis of Porno for Pyros in the early 90s and the writing of the hit single Pets, which I'm sure you remember from MTV back in the day. Anyway, thanks to everyone for waiting on me these past few months to resurrect the Mile High Stash podcast. I guess this is kind of a reunion of sorts as well, and a farewell, but only to the insane once-a-week podcast thing I was doing with Mile High Stash, in addition to the rest of my life. My wonderful girlfriend, partner, Wonder Woman, Michaela, to quote Jane's Addiction, such a classic girl who gives her man great ideas, suggested I get Mile High Stash going again, but once a month. So that is very wise. I'm looking forward to sharing a new episode of Mile High Stash on the first Monday of every month. It feels like a good way to embrace what's most important in my life, like my daughter and my partner, and still not totally throw away my crazy passions like drumming and writing and doing this podcast. And it's great to start season 2 off by talking with one of my all-time favorite drummers. A lot of you have probably seen the famous video of Stephen Perkins playing Keith Moon's iconic "Who Are You" drum part, and I started wondering when I was talking to Stephen Perkins what would be the most impressive Jane's Addiction part to play. I don't know, maybe it would be 3 days or stop, but there are so many choices and they would all be pretty fucking hard to pull off. Okay, enjoy my conversation with Stephen Perkins of Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros after a few quick words from our generous sponsor today, The Dab.
The Dab is a veteran-owned dispensary with 7 locations in Colorado, owned and operated by Lance Perryman. The Dab offers everything from flower and edibles to pre-rolls, rosin, and accessories like pipes, paper, and pens. Whether you're in search of exotic flower or chill CBD, head to a Dab location in Denver, Aspen, Glenwood Springs, Louisville, or even Parachute, Colorado today, or order at thedab303.com. Don't forget to mention this episode of Mile High Stash in the next 30 days at any Dab location to receive 10% off your purchase.
Hey, man.
Good afternoon.
I'm guessing you're in Los Angeles, right?
I'm home in my room and very happy to be surrounded by drums. And my drum tech Mike's on his way over right now, bringing over the Porno kit with the bongos and timbales and all that good percussive element. And right now I'm just sitting at a massive.
Yeah.
of kit, but the Porno kit's really a whole different vehicle the way I have it set up. And it actually, when I play with Mike Watt and Pete, we've been using this drum kit for the last 3 or 4 rehearsals. And it puts me in a whole nother space because I don't have the bongos and the timbales, all that. So I'm playing a little more backbeat, more pocket. And it's been good for Mike because Watt's playing some of these songs for the first time.
Yeah. My first memory of you, because I've been playing drums since I was 9.
Yeah, I was reading. That's cool.
You know, Pets came out when I was 12, and I remember you keeping the beat, I think with your left hand on a little snare, and I had never seen anything like that. I had seen, you know, it was always either a John Bonham or Ringo kit or like Lars Ulrich. So my question though was, what was it like to be in a band at that time when a song like Pets with a weird drum kit and a very creative rhythm, you know, could be a hit?
Well, that's a great question, because if you think about what the environment was in the music scene in 94, 93, Jane's Addiction obviously broke up 91, and I had a year with Infectious Grooves before we started Porno. So that was really healthy for me as a drummer. I was starting to meet all these new musicians that were separate of my camp. And I had a great camp of musicians, you know, with the Susie, the Banshees, and Butthole Surfers, and Chili Peppers. But when I started playing with the Suicidal Cats, I met a whole new group of musicians, more on the metal side. And that fine-tuned kind of some of my drum skills away from where Jane's Addiction was, which was very groovy and tribal at the essence. And then with Infectious Grooves, you know, of course, we had Robert Trujillo playing a 6-string funking, you know, completely a 180 from Eric Avery.
Yeah, monster.
So complete, you know, he takes up a lot of real estate. But like Eric does, you know, you have to be very careful of where you place your patterns when you're working with a bass player that doesn't just kind of unison the guitar part. Jane, Porno, Infectious, these bass players have their own spot in the mix. So that's kind of when Infectious was wrapping up and me and Perry were already talking about the future of Porno and the sound of it. We didn't want to in any way find a guitar player that would be in the Dave Navarro league as far as fireworks and shredding. And you know the beautiful psychedelic music that Dave comes up with starts with virtuosity, his finger. And then, of course, his choices are so psychedelic, and he's just kind of like this red sky over the mix. So we have that with Jane's, and so with Porno, I thought let's take up a lot of the spot with vocal and drum rhythm, and we can make polyrhythmic patterns with the vocal, or even 2 or 3 drum patterns interplaying with the vocal, because Perry's very jazz oriented in his phrasing. And where he places the syllables, it's almost timbale or bongo-like. That's how I hear Perry. He's like a percussion player in my world, you know. You know, opposed to me joining his world, we're joining forces in a percussive. So going into Porno, I really did think bongos, timbales, bells. The timpani kind of came a little later as the songs were being written. But I wanted to cover this full frequency mix from the highest little pin drop, which would be an ice bell back then, to the you know, sub 808 rolling, you know, electric drum, and cover from everything there in between. And so our goal was really not to think about radio, not to think about what Jane's Addiction did and what it could have been if it had continued, or even to take the temperature of what was around us, which was Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice, and a lot of what was coming from, you know, the north side of Cali above us was actually a reason not to be like that, in a sense, you know? And when Pete DiStefano started writing songs with us, he would bring acoustic guitar. He was more likely to bring acoustic guitar, and I'd have a bongo. We sit on a couch, then plug into our amps and get into a rehearsal room and actually play with some volume. So the songs started with this a folk I guess, imagery, lyrically and guitar wise. And that really was, to me, a punk rock moment. It didn't have punk rock speed or pacing as far as the tuning of the how the tunes were like put together, but it was punk rock because it was going against the grain of everything else that was happening, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we had something to say, and we really kind of wanted to take our time. If you think about Pets, Black Girlfriend, Packing 25, Orgasm, a lot of that record was really the pacing of the song and where the lyrics can tell the story. It was a different approach than where James was coming from. We really tried to like step aside. So, you know, it felt natural for us to make this music as far as hearing it on the radio or the you know, the bridge between MTV and the listener and the consumer, so to speak. You know, we never really kind of put that into the blender and pushed on. We just kept trying new ideas and tried to not replicate where we were, not try to replicate what James was great at, and see if we can do something a little different. A lot of people were thinking it would be the third James record, the first Porno record, but it wasn't. It was a real fresh band, very raw. And we couldn't be as rehearsed or as fine-tuned. Because if you think about Triple X, it's a live recording at the Roxy. You get what you get. Nothing shocking. We had $500,000 to spend 3 months in the studio. So we spent every penny, and we spent every hour. We explored the space of the studio. Like the first 3 minutes of Summertime is me on a Gretsch. And the second half of Summertime with the big drums is me on a Ludwig with mallets. It was a whole nother session. We just glued them together. I mean, we enjoyed the studio. Yeah. By the time we did Ritual, we were a live band that had been on tour for a year. All we did was put the mics up and play 3 days, and then she did, and that's what you got. You got a live band, kind of like the Triple X record, but a way better band and a way better recording, you know?
Yeah.
It's like an experience. That's the beginning of Ted, the big drum conversation I had with myself, you know? And all that was really studio interplay. So with Porno, we got through so much. You know, it was really distilled and purified, just songs, and a band rehearsing the songs and trying to put it together. And if you think about Pets compared to the rest of the songs on the record, the drums are quite simple. I'm very proud of that. It's a left-handed timbali. Could have been a snare, but it's a 10-inch timbali that John Good from TW made me. They didn't make timbalis at the time. You know, they said, go get some LP or, you know, or Gone Bops. But I was like, nah, I'd love to play some brass DW timbales if that's possible. So you get 10 and a 12. And there's a 20-inch kick drum on that tune with no pillow and a 13-inch wooden snare. So the whole drum sound was quite unique.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And Perry wrote the lyrics for Pets at my house. I was feeding my snake, Bobo. And he was writing, wouldn't we make great pets? And I thought of this clock ticking, you know, tick tock, tick tock. And so I always thought Motown beats were very clock, you know, like a reflection of a clock keeping time, you know. So I kind of thought Motown meets the lyric and come up with some interesting drum sounds so the sounds can stand alone just because they're interesting as a sonic experience for the listener, you know. But, you know, think about the great song that was happening at the time. The poor guy passed away, Shannon Hoon.
Yeah, Blind Melon.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the song, though. We all know the song, but what was the name of it?
No Rain.
The Bumblebee song,
No Rain was, that's a good example of how a completely quirky band with a completely quirky song at the time could become huge stars.
Absolutely. You know? I think Pets kind of can sit at the same table as that song. Same way happening around us at the time. With STP and good stuff, really great, you know, stuff and great musicians. But there was something you can put your finger on and say that's the time of music and that's where it came from. But not with that song, not with Pets, you know, like from nowhere. And, you know, there's a lot of bands that come and go that do that little imprint, which breaks ground, and the sound of it still is timeless. You know, you really can't, you know, that's really what it's about, is writing timeless music. You know, Mountain Song or I Would For You or Pets. or Tahitian Moon. It's a song that could be 1980, 1880, 2080. It's just a good song. It's how you produce it, is how you can tell what year it is,
Exactly.
What on it and how, So that's what I love about a great song, is it could be timeless, and it all depends how you want to, decorate it and what instruments. I mean, I always go back to like what classical music, the imprint of just the greatest of all time. If you can say Miles Davis, and you can say Beethoven, and you can say Hendrix, and I mean, these are the people that changed everything. And from that
Sex Pistols.
Yeah, exactly. From that point on, nothing really is the same. So, Jane's Addiction and Porno, we always want to be a band that changes people's mood, because if that's what we're after, is uplifting people or giving them something thought-provoking music, that's provoke thought somehow with our music. And it's okay if you feel anger after a song and you want to destroy, but I'd love to have people listen to our record and want to create something of their own. That's all.
You reminded me of something that Bill Stevenson of the Descendants and Black Flag said when I interviewed him last year. He said that, punk rock originally, specifically in the Southern California area, it was about not sounding like anybody else. So you could literally have Los Lobos or X or Black Flag or the Descendants. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about that I feel is punk rock is just, you guys, all of a sudden, there's harmonica on this record, and the harmonica is so out of left field, and it's so quirky, and yet it completely works and fits everything. And I almost think of like that Christopher Walken skit on SNL where he's like, what you guys are going to need is more cowbell. So who was the one saying,
well,
what you need?
This goes back to us writing songs campfire style. Perry has a harmonica in his pocket. Here's a melody. Maybe it could be a trumpet. Maybe it can be guitar. You get to the studio, harmonica still holds water. I mean, that's where the melody was born. The beginning of Cursed Female. The beginning of the song when we did it at the campfire. So it's like when you get to the studio and you try to replace that sound, like, play it with the harp. Wait a minute. That's actually the sound that's the sound we need. And Perry's vocal effects, at the time, maybe the SPX 90, the Roland SPX 90 is what he was using. But some of the effects he's using on his voice will also go hand in hand with the instruments he'll be playing. And there is a great, almost like a paprika or a cayenne. Once you taste it in your food, you know what it is. And that's kind of where we feel like our instruments and our personalities on our instruments and our voices should have a flavor that you can put your finger on. And I always love the song "My Time" by Janes. We never put it in the studio. It's only the Triple X record. Same with "Trip Away." And 1%. And there's a few of those songs that are just exactly the way we wrote them back in '86. But wouldn't it be interesting to go in the studio? But then also you kick yourself. You go, you know what? Maybe not. I mean, they're already done.
Yeah, maybe that's just
exactly.
it.
They're done.
Yeah.
It's like, why go back and try to relive the first date? You can't do it.
Right.
So the harmonica, those harmonica parts and those melodies that Perry has in his head, sometimes will end up being played on another instrument. On the second record, Good God's Urge, he had some ideas that were originally on the harp. I think it ended up being played by Leo Chelyapov on clarinet, which was a song called Wishing Well. And there's also a song, I think there's a harmonica idea that ended up being played on another instrument in 100 Ways. So sometimes you do kind of lend yourself, okay, that melody works. Maybe we can use a different texture. And that's how I feel on the drum set too. Because, writing the songs at a campfire sort of situation with a little egg shaker and a bongo, the rhythms are very small circles. They're tiny. You get to a drum set, circles are bigger and they take a longer time to expand, and the circles can change the way the bass line feels. If they're used to be tiny, and that's how the bass line was written, and then you get on a drum kit and you kind of open them up. That's why a lot of those drum beats can still feel written almost like a hand drum or hand percussion drummer, but on a drum set.
Yeah.
basically it could be played with just your hands, but I played it on a drum set.
How do you keep, what makes Stephen Perkins when you might be changing your sensibility and your kit with each project that you play in?
It's constant. I'm here this morning behind the drum set trying to reinvent myself, which I've already worked 50 years on, to be me. Now, how do I get away from me? I get on the drum kit, it sounds like me. Great. That's what I wanted. But now I don't want that. So I push myself to do a 180 of maybe there's always that great performance mirror. It's great to film yourself and record yourself. And that performance mirror, I think, is important to kind of re-examine what you want more of, what you should never do again, what you should only do in private, never bring it to the band.
Right.
Those things. I think there's a lot of like intimate privacy that I have between me and my drumsticks and my rhythms. And then I think some are sacred to me because they're only for me to grow, and they're not really musical in a sense, for maybe in a position where I would want to present them and put them in the blender with the ingredients of somebody else. So I'm always looking to grow. I mean, Eric Avery will send me a bass line and I'll spend days, months, years trying to find a drum beat that works to its best potential. When the bass line finally feels like they're married, my favorite, idea of marrying a drum beat and a bass line is like an MC Escher etching, with the white duck and the black duck, and you can't really see which duck you're looking at, or the stairs are upside down or the right side up. His etchings are complicated, but they're simple images, but they just repeat over and over. And if you think of a Mountain Song or Had a Dad or any of his great bass lines that he still plays and writes, there's this magical I guess you can say it's almost like a math equation. It fits. 4 + 4 is 8. You really can't change that. You can do it in 2s. You can do it in 3 + 5. You can do whatever you want. You're going to get to 8 somehow. So I love working with musicians that push me. I love changing my drum set, putting a floor tom next to the hi-hat, and then in a month, putting a timbali next to the hi-hat, putting a ride cymbal on the left, and then change that and put a china up there. And just a drummer can be fortunate to kind of change their environment quickly. And what I listen to, from reggae to punk to classical to jazz to Indian to Latin, kind of just enjoy what I can't do well. And when I get to the drum set, work on that. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and then when you sit with Flea, I'm so lucky, or Mike Watt, or Eric, or any of these great bass players in my life, I have to think of the hours that they have put in to become a personal, it's not just an instrument. You can hear Flea's personality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's always what I wanted. I wanted to be a personality drummer. Like, maybe I don't fit in every position, every band, every song. No, but my personality will show up in my playing. So I guess that's what I'm after is I'm a changing person, 56. I got a son and a wife. 25 years ago, I didn't have that. And so what does that do to the urgency to live? What does that do to my urgency to create? I think about Stuart Copeland. What he put on the Police songs, I couldn't stand listening to a Sting song without a great drummer. You know what I mean? It's a nice singing, nice guitar changes, cool parts. Nothing there. There's no urgency. There's no emergency without Stuart,
Right.
Like, I always wanted to add something to the song to bring the element that if it's not there, it just doesn't work anymore. That's also, but not to step on the tune, but also to bring, like, why are you there, man? There's only a few things that go into the drink of a margarita. So make sure that they're exact ingredients, and that's what you've been doing for 50 years. Everybody knows that's what goes into a margarita, and they can tilt it, vary it, but the traditional. So my ingredients as a drummer is to bring, sensitive to the lyric and the subject, sensitive to the phrasing and the urgency of the singer, just as much as where the bass line and the guitar, and just as much as when you don't play, those moments when you pull out and that waiting for us to fall into it. everyone in the audience is like on the edge of their fucking seat because of us, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
The rhythm, the like a piece of taffy, you know, and Bonham is hearing the one on the E of the O-N-E. Copeland's here one on the O of the O-N-E. You know what I mean? It's just one word, one.
Yeah.
But it's huge. I mean, a drummer can really expand on the actual click. It's a massive piece of real estate that we get to play on, before, after, between. It's up to us. And the more we understand that, the more we can move the music and tilt it in our favor, as far as like where we think. I think drummers have the greatest. I work at conductors. A conductor can do Beethoven's Fifth in 12 minutes. Another guy will do it in 11:40. It's the same music, you know. It's like a drummer. A drummer can all of a sudden the song is like 3 seconds shorter than take. What happened? That's a drummer, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Fed up, you know.
Yeah. So you have spent a lot of time in Colorado over the years, I'm sure, and you can picture the mountains, and your shows are going to be in Aspen and Denver. So we ask every guest this one question: if you were stranded in a remote Colorado cabin, and there was a zombie apocalypse, and you're completely alone, and you could only bring 5 albums, what would you bring?
Well, on that note, I would go with double records mostly. So I would think Beatles' White Album, Pink Floyd, The Wall, Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti, Tommy, The Who, and then one single record, which would be Miles Davis, Sketches of Spain.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you got all this rock and all these big, famous drummers, and then you have Sketches of Spain. That's great.
Well, I can go out. Any jazz record would kind of blend, but Sketches sticks out as more than a jazz record. That's just
it's like a movie.
It's an art piece.
Yeah.
So, and there's so much to draw from those rock records. Those are the hours I spent mostly listening to in my life, were the Beatles and the Floyd and the Stones, not the Stones, excuse me, and Zeppelin. And Who. But if you think about, I said the Stones. If you think about the Stones, it was more in the background than any other band in your life. It's always on the radio. It's always, and the Stones are always there. But these other bands I put on, I didn't put on the Stones that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I heard them a shitload.
Yeah.
But the best thing about music, and I was talking about our great loss of Taylor Hawkins, man. We can listen to his drum. We can go back and hear his urgency, his emergence.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? What he brought to a club or a arena sounded the same to him. It was just go for it.
And then he would get out and sing. Yeah,
exactly. And there's that kind of like the ego that all drummers should be able to show, is that a drum set is the loudest thing on the stage, but we're hidden behind all the cymbals and drums, and it's a beautiful place to be. But I love seeing him and other drummers get out there and sing and see, like, it's I love singing and I do a lot of it, but to get on stage is like an actor. You almost have to be an actor.
Yeah,
and that's kind of cool to see what he became when he sang. Because I know him so well, the drummer, and he's never acting. He was never acting.
Yeah. Well, I have a story for you. It's very short, but the first time that I ever played a show in Los Angeles, I was like 21, and I was on a bill of like 4 bands at this place called 14 Below.
Yeah, of course.
And you were playing with Watt at 14 Below with Banyan, I think. And so, I'm this kid, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to shake Stephen Perkins' hand tonight, and it's gonna be amazing. And so I'm loading out after our set, all sweaty, and you're standing there with Taylor Hawkins and Jimmy Chamberlain, and I almost died. I was just like, this is insane. So I was wondering if you ever had a moment like that as a young drummer, like, I can't believe I'm getting to meet this guy.
Yeah, it keeps happening to me. And as now that I'm 56 and I get to see and get to be in the same room and talk to some of the drummers I grew up with, and they're only 76, right? And they're 20 years older than me, but growing up, they were everything. That's all I knew. And that's all I wanted to be with these guys. And so it's constant. But I think one of the favorite, I guess, relationships that I have in the drum world would, definitely have to be the meeting Terry Bozzio and then bumping into him over the years and having talks about music and art. And I always thought as a drummer, he was a spectacular, like not even from this earth. Like, I don't even want to know where he is from. That doesn't matter. It's like, so that he was such a magical, like, I couldn't ever as a kid wonder what this man would be like. And now I do know. And he's just like us. He likes to drum, he likes to talk about drumming. But I think that's really the very charming for me to know him and to have him in my life at all. Yeah. But growing up, so many great musicians, and then being surrounded by them at this age, and having Mike Watt in Porno for Pyros and Eric Avery's back in Jane's Addiction, and these guys I met when I was 17, and they're still my heroes. I still want to impress them when I play with them. I still have, you know what I mean? This is my chance now. I can show these guys what I'm made of. I still feel. So that's really important, to surround yourself with people that, I was talking to another musician about, you want to be surrounded by great players, because a great tennis player doesn't want to ace his opponent. He wants to get some rattling, you know what I mean, and then beat him, but still you want to still have some game. So it's fun to have game and get pushed around a little bit in a musical sense, and get push each other up. So
I don't want to keep you. I don't want to keep you any longer, but just one last thing. I mean, why is this a reunion and a farewell at the same time?
Yeah, that's sad. Well, it came together because Jane's Addiction couldn't put together a band at this one moment. Navarro couldn't make it, and we thought, should we just pull the plug on the Jane show? And our beautiful manager Ian said, "What, Porno for Pyros, man? What about you guys? You guys, why don't you play?" So it was an organic rebirth, which was great. But Jane's Addiction, there's a huge understanding of what we need to do to become great again as Jane's. So I think it's going to be, love the Porno for Pyros moment that we're in, but let's not think about how to kind of checkerboard the bands.
Yeah.
Eric is back. Porno can always exist because it's a campfire band at heart. We can get together, but I think the Jane's Addiction, the bullseye and the target that we all think is so important in our life is possible, but it has to be some things have to be cleared out of the way, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
But ever, for me, playing with Perry is playing with Perry, and then playing with Eric or Navarro or Martine or Watt or Pete, it's just songs and me just being with my friends and playing songs. So it doesn't make sense to even put a word farewell on it. I don't like that word.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I'm not a big fan of the word. So, but I'm very flexible with the, okay, let's put together a farewell tour and do it. And, Perry is endless amount of energy and ideas. And so, anything goes. I just heard that they might possibly, I think it was, so Grateful, the Dead and Company just kind of stopped touring, but now I heard they might do the Dome in Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess the tour, they did do a farewell tour, but now you can come to them.
Yeah. Well, a lot of bands have done. I mean, how many farewell tours did Kiss do? That's a lot of farewell tours.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it was kind of like it was born kind of organically, and we don't want to kind of stick it into a place where it doesn't belong. Just let it kind of grow and see what happens. But that's a good question. The songs that are coming out, the last two, Pete's Dad, which was a little bit older, but Agua, and there's two more coming around.
Great.
It's just fucking, it feels like there's purpose to these songs. So I guess if there's a purpose for us, there will be more.
Cool. Yeah.
Let's say that.
Thank you so much for talking with me, and thank you so much for getting the band back together, so people like me who were in junior high when the first album came out can finally see you guys play.
Absolutely. We're going to do a great show and many, many unusual experiences on stage in the moment, because we don't play a lot. It's just going to be a band out there doing it, and that's cool. I love that.
Awesome. I'm so excited to see it, man.
Peace.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too, man.
I'll give you another hour, then I gotta run, I gotta fly away, leave you to fall, leave you to stay.
That was Stephen Perkins of Porno for Pyros and Jane's Addiction and a lot more, talking with me about the much anticipated Porno for Pyros reunion / farewell tour, which kicks off on February 13th in Santa Ana, California, and is gonna go for about a month all the way out to New Jersey. They're gonna stop in Aspen at Belly Up on February 21st, and then at the Fillmore in Denver on February 22nd, which is the one I hope to get to. Thanks for listening, and thank you to the Dab for sponsoring today's episode of Mile High Stash. It's good to be back, and I will see you on the first Monday of March. And don't forget to drop a review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps. And you can also find out more about Mile High Stash at milehighstash.com. And we love to hear from you guys. Questions, complaints, donations, therapy advice, whatever you got, at milehighstash@gmail.com. We will talk soon.
I'm old-fashioned, I just don't share your passion for ever-changing eternal twilight. Go on and give oblivion a shot. You go on and fade to gray if you got to. Maybe you'll do better without God, and maybe I'll do better without you. Well, I wish that were true, and I wish that were you.